The seat of my project is composed of multiple boards that will be glued together. We have prepped all of the edges of all of the boards so we can then lay out our boards prior to our gluing operation. I'm looking for a couple things. First is the end grain. I want to make sure that the end grain is alternating. If I look at my first board, I can see that the end grain is going down. My next board, it is also going down. The next board is going up, followed by another piece going up, and then down again. So I'm going to switch these around a bit. Down, up, down, up, down. So at this point, my end grain is alternating. I can now shift my focus to the face grain. I want this to look like one big board, if possible. It'll never look perfect, but we can do the best we can to line up our grain. If I add some marks to accentuate the grain, I have real tight grain on this board, and I have real wide grain on this one. Those don't line up very good, so perhaps I'm going to rotate this around. Now, rotating it this way does not change the end grain. My end grain is still alternating from the previous piece. Now, if I accentuate that grain, I have pretty straight, tighter grain right next to each other, so I'm liking the way that looks. So I'm going to move on to my next piece, following the same procedure. And I'm going to work through, and I'm shifting my pieces around until I have a good looking grain pattern across all of the pieces. And we can shift pieces around, but we always want to go back and make sure that the end grain is alternating. So I have two pieces going down, so I'm going to flip this end over end. Same with this one. And then check my grain pattern again to make sure that I'm still liking it after moving the pieces around. I think everything looks pretty good here. Next, I'm going to number each of the joints. This will help prevent me from getting confused when I bring these back to the glue area. After that, I'm going to squeeze the boards together, and I am looking along each joint to see if there is a gap that's going to pose a problem in the gluing process. If you have a large gap, that means you need to re-joint or re-true up one of the edges, put them back together, and see if you can close that gap. If you can close the gap with your hands, you will not have a problem with the clamps. At this point, everything should be prepped, and I should be ready for glue.